13 stars killed by the bottle, the sad reality behind Hollywood's brightest lights. Amidst the golden sheen of Hollywood, where the lights sparkle and clapping infuses the atmosphere, stardom can seem like a fantasy. Yet, behind their shiny teeth and gleaming awards usually stands a bleaker truth, one immersed in loneliness, stress, and frantic attempts to find solace at the bottom of a bottle. These are the tales of 13 stars who ruled Hollywood but were vanquished by booze, all a sobering reminder that fame can sometimes be the harshest curse of all. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Richard Burton, the voice that drowned in whiskey. Richard Burton's voice could fill a room. Deep, rich, and poetic, it bore Shakespeare's words as though he had written them just for him. But as his popularity climbed, so did his use of alcohol. The Welsh actor, who was famous for his passionate love affair with Elizabeth Taylor, used booze regularly to escape the turmoil of his own feelings. Taylor herself once said, "When Richard drank, he became a stranger." Even though he received 7 Academy Award nominations, his demons tagged along on every set, every stage, every bottomless glass. Friends remembered the way his thunderous energy dissipated over time, until his liver finally gave in 1984. Burton's tale is an old-fashioned tragedy. A man gifted with a voice that could move mountains, brought low by his own addiction. 2. Peter O'Toole, the charmer who outdrank death itself. Few could equal the charisma of Peter O'Toole, tall, cunning, and irresistibly charming. His breakthrough role in Lawrence of Arabia made him overnight legend. But behind that glint in his "I was a man who lived life in high gear," glass in hand, O'Toole's boozing was legendary even by Hollywood standards. He would banter that he had a liver the size of a rugby ball, but the reality wasn't far behind. Doctors and friends would tell him that he wouldn't live past his 40s. But he beat the statistics, having major surgery and outliving many of his contemporaries. Nevertheless, his health never restored itself. Even in his old age, the specter of his excessive drinking followed him. O'Toole's legacy is that of a genius who danced perilously close to death and managed somehow to live long enough to see his own myth unfold. 3. Judy Garland, the girl who couldn't find home. To the world, Judy Garland was Dorothy, the girl who sang about rainbows and inspired us to believe in dreams. But behind that innocent smile, there was a commodity child pushed to the brink by studio bosses who dictated every detail of her life, including her diet, her sleep, and her sanity. Alcohol was her escape, combined with a cocktail of pills that MGM had supplied her with since she was a teenager. The same system that created her star destroyed her from the inside. By her 40s, her voice shook not from age, but fatigue. In 1969, at 47, she was dead, her heart and liver collapsing after years of anguish. Judy never discovered her rainbow, only the empty cheers that arrived too late. For Errol Flynn, the pirate who couldn't shake himself. Errol Flynn was the envy of every man and the dream of every woman, the greatest swashbuckler of the golden era of Hollywood. With sword in hand and smile on lips, he appeared invincible. But in reality, Flynn was battling a losing war against his own excesses. Drinking, scandal, and wild living became his calling card. He would quip, "I like my whiskey old and my women young," a saying that would become synonymous with the chaos of his life. His body accelerated 4 decades in advance. When he died at age 50, his organs were those of a man double his age. Flynn's charm never abandoned him, but neither did the bottle, and it took everything else from him in the end. 5. Montgomery Clift, Hollywood's broken heart. Montgomery Clift was the kind of actor everyone loved, sensitive, brooding, and deeply human. But after a near-fatal auto accident in 1956, something inside him broke forever. The formerly handsome star's face was left partially disfigured, and the ensuing pain drove him to turn to booze and pills for solace. Pals claimed he turned into a ghost of his old self, genius but tormented. Elizabeth Taylor, his dear friend, once referred to him as the most beautiful soul I ever knew, inside a body which betrayed him. Clift's profession never recovered. When he passed away at age 45, the coroner called it the longest suicide in Hollywood history. He didn't pass away overnight. He wore away drink by drink. 6. W.C. Fields, the comedian who laughed through the pain. W.C. Fields was capable of making millions laugh, yet he could never smile himself. Famous for his quick wit and boozing image, Fields constantly blurred the lines between character and man. He drank on set, in interviews, even in his own home. His liver as much a part of his routine as his jokes. When his health finally collapsed, he refused to see doctors, joking, "I'd rather die of drinking than live on water." In 1946, he got his wish. Behind the laughter was a man who drank not for joy, but to forget, a clown whose jokes couldn't hide the loneliness of the man beneath the hat. 7. Elizabeth Taylor, Beauty, Diamonds, and the Battle Within. Elizabeth Taylor was the very picture of glamour, violet-colored eyes, diamond-studded rings, and a romantic life that made headlines for decades. But beneath the blinding veneer was a woman tormented by suffering. Decades of unsuccessful marriages, body wounds, and emotional shattering drove her to booze and prescription medication. She drank as much as a bottle of vodka daily. At one time, Taylor's strength, though, was equally legendary. She entered rehab long before it was chic, and then leveraged her celebrity status to promote recovery from addiction. Although she overcame her demons, they indelibly marked her. Reminders that even the most beautiful are vulnerable to breaking. 8. Mickey Rooney, the boy wonder who grew up too fast. Mickey Rooney started out as Hollywood's golden boy, a star child with endless charm and boundless energy, but famed too soon and adulthood too cruelly. He turned to booze to deal with failed marriages, bankruptcy, and the isolation that comes with fame. "I spent more on booze than most people make in a lifetime," he once admitted. By the time he discovered sobriety, the glamour had worn off, but his spirit never would. Rooney's is a cautionary tale of what happens when child stardom arrives without childhood. 9. Spencer Tracy, the quiet drinker. Spencer Tracy was one of the greatest actors of his time, disciplined, reflective, and intensely private. But he had a darkness few knew about. His lifelong romance with Katharine Hepburn was founded on deep love and deep suffering. Tracy's drinking made him guilt-stricken and withdrawn. Hepburn stayed loyal, even when he went missing for days on a drinking spree. The director with whom he frequently collaborated, George Cukor, stated, "Spencer was a great actor because he understood suffering. That kind of suffering, though, never escaped him." At the time of his death in 1967, it was apparent that his finest role was keeping his own heartache a secret. 10. Ava Gardner, the goddess who couldn't stay sober. Ava Gardner possessed the kind of beauty which could stand still time. Men loved her. Women were jealous. But fame, to Ava, was a desolate kingdom. Following her marriage with Frank Sinatra's breakdown, she ended up resorting to alcohol to compensate for the emptiness. Her late nights and reckless behavior became legendary. Yet, even in her decline, there was something heartbreakingly human about her. The vulnerability of a woman who had everything but peace. In her later years, she admitted, "I wish I'd drunk just a little less, but it was the only thing that kept me company." She died in 1990, still defiant, still unforgettable. 11. Richard Harris, the wild Irish heart. Richard Harris was one of the wildest men in show business before he became wise old Professor Dumbledore. With his talent, temper, and penchant for drink, Harris was the embodiment of the Irish rebel spirit. He famously spent months drinking after the shoot of Camelot, arriving at interviews barely lucid, but somehow remaining magnetically charming. His alcoholism notwithstanding, he staged an astonishing comeback in later life, albeit one which never sufficiently rehabilitated his battered health. Harris lived life on his own terms, and died knowing he had burned more brightly than the vast majority ever could. 12. Oliver Reed, the last of the Hellraisers. Oliver Reed was a man ahead of his time, a throwback to the hard-drinking, hard-living heroes that preceded him. To him, Life was a party that could never finish. His drunken escapades were the stuff of legend, often including crazy public stunts and fights. During filming of Gladiator in 1999, Reed dared sailors to a drinking match and collapsed shortly thereafter. He had a heart attack, his body finally giving in to half a century of excess. Reed's death represented the end of an era when stars were as decadent as they were brilliant. 13. Veronica Lake, The Lost Dream. Veronica Lake was the 1940s pinup who created the peekaboo hairstyle, a sign of mystery and seduction. But fame was unkind to her. Her career diminished quickly, substituted with broken failed marriages and money woes. Alcohol was her escape, and by the 1960s she was in low-budget motels, unrecognizable to those who had once idolized her. Few in Hollywood even knew when she died at just 50. Veronica's tale is one of the industry's saddest, a woman who gave glamour to the world and received emptiness in return. The curtain falls. All of these stars had their personal motivations, agony, stress, heartache, or the constant craving for flight. But their tales all have the same dismal beat: a meteoric ascent, a gradual decline, and a soundless demise behind secret doors. Hollywood can hail the sparkle, but its past is penned in tears, and in the discreet tinkling of glasses toasted by those who could not achieve serenity in the limelight. Ultimately, the true tragedy is not that these stars imbibed. It's that the world witnessed them disintegrate and labeled it as entertainment.